Well, it's active player,
All
non-active
right,
player.
active
So,
player, non-active player. Yeah, so if you do it
so
in your opponent's turn, then your trigger will go on stack first.
then you can currency convert the card.
Yeah.
But if you are, which most of the time you're putting cards into the graveyard at sorcery speed.
Yeah, true.
Um, yeah. So lots of graveyard hate on the Sidisi deck, and so my opponent is kind of fortunate to, or not my opponent, uh, the
You
Terra
see
player is
yourself as
fortunate to be playing a very mid-rangey version. This actually no, it's not that mid-rangey. It cuts. There's no persist. Um, but there are still, Metamorphosis Fanatic. It plays some of the higher end mid-range creatures like Mardu Siegebreaker, Morlock,
Mhm,
um,
mhm.
and that kind of full plan. So it does have the ability um to go wide in that sense, playing a pretty slim suite of 1 mana ramp and kind of the best sets of interaction. So we will see. I mean, I think Psychic Frog is a good card against. Um, oh, actually, no, it's not that good. It's he is just. Is he just interesting?
So there is a Cruel Claws Heast. That there's a lightning bolt and 3 lands.
Okay,
Okay,
I guess
so
he
yeah,
he wanted to definitely deny the demonic tutor access, which I can understand. Does he have a full set of those snow-covered lands?
that would be crazy.
That's 34. 34 of those.
I think each of them is like $5 at least.
I think it's probably more, I would think. Looking at these.
It's this
Yeah,
one
in
here, right?
foil they start at 12 euros.
Oh, that's crazy. It
You
fits
can get
our background
32.
actually very well.
Yeah, it does. You can get 32 of them from 3-for-1 trading for 13 euros a piece. So
Okay,
if that is the case, this is like a 500 euro set of snow-covered lands.
that's crazy.
That's pretty crazy, yeah.
So, no advertisement for any card market trader.
Oh, yeah, no, it's just rare to see this many lands on a card market trader.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
we have a wild growth with a Terra hitting no enchantments.
Renin
Um,
6 going to the graveyard, if I see that correctly. Grief, Delighted Halfling, and 2 lands, was it? I think. Okay, Lightning Bolt directly dealing with Terra.
Makes
Makes
sense. The
sense.
mana efficient thing to do here.
Exactly. And you can't really throw it onto the Psychic Frog. It's already at 4 toughness. And, these damage dealing effects against the Psychic Frog are mostly useless
Yep.
since the opponent can trade more cards for higher toughness. And if it isn't for Unholy Heat or something in that direction, you rarely get rid of it by
Yeah.
casting shocks
I'm
and the like.
surprised to see that the Psychic Frog is still alive. They're like a mono black deck has so many answers to cards like Psychic Frog.
That's very true.
Mm. I am looking at this list. It is, I think I feel it's an interesting list. Absolutely, like definitely. There are lots of board wipes, lots of creature removal, not as much hand disruption as I would have expected.
Hmm.
Like there is quite a bit, but
The Stone of
yeah,
Eric only triggers when a creature dies, right? Yeah, I think so.
if a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it
Yeah.
instead.
Okay, so it's not like affecting anything that comes now. That is, for example, milled from the
Yeah,
Terra trigger.
but he can activate it and mill
So
and
there's
exile his graveyard. So if he has something in that direction.
yeah. There is the opposition agent was discarded with the Thoughtseize. What is the other card?
Cling to Dust.
In Alexa's hand is a Cling to Dust.
That's what I'm seeing with my eyes, I would
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, maybe you're right, but
Looks good.
I thought the artwork thought I can remember a Cling to Dust, but you might be right. Another purple card. So
Okay,
now
so
deciding to crack it.
he was animating the animating the opposition agent to kind of keep his graveyard, his whole graveyard safe. We'll see how useful that is. I think it is a Cling to Dust that is there.
Yeah, you might be right.
Um,
Just that there is no crazy target yet.
and I was wondering what was cast with that Underground Sea. He's been tapping it with a Rishadan port.
Ah, yeah. That makes sense with the Wild Growth attached. Trading 2 mana for 2. There's a Tangle Wire. That's an entire tap out next turn. And we
True.
even have a Disruptive Flute. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think
Does
this.
tap down the Psychic Frog for at least one turn, denying a card draw as well. If he has something to do at instant speed, he has 5 mana to do it with. At the beginning of the turn here.
I think you would. Why
Oh no,
would you
okay.
not? Yeah, I mean, I get
He's using the disruptor flute. Um,
for something.
maybe he wants to stop a Terra recast or something.
I'm
But
not
I don't know.
entirely sure because the thing is, I get why you want to cast the flute now. The fluty flute, as I learned on the French Discord. Um, but and it also helps in addition or in combination with the Tangle Wire. But denying
Uh,
another draw from Terra is also not the worst, I would imagine.
yeah, yeah. I would have also used the port here instead of keeping the flute open, unless he has like a clear name in mind for that card. They've they've noted it down.
Yeah, it's a
He's
Psychic
naming the
Frog.
Psychic Frog, um, so that it can't grow anymore.
I mean, Sidisi can still exploit itself, right? That's
Yes,
how.
Sidisi can exploit itself. I feel like this is not the spot to be exploiting with the Sidisi. Oh, okay. So the there we have it. Card mentioned earlier. Planar Void
Ah,
um, does so. Yeah, he's fully off the graveyard shenanigans. He still has the Psychic Frog clock in play, um,
it's
which will
pretty.
eventually.
That's pretty cool, actually. Bringing that down here against that board.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he has. I saw a Saga in hand, some form of Saga. What does he play? He plays Fable of the Mirror Breaker, so that's probably a Fable in the hand there. He's still getting to draw cards with the Psychic Frog.
Mhm.
This is a 3-turn clock currently. If he manages to deploy something for 2 mana here, that would also be pretty strong.
It's definitely something that
Um,
you have to respect, I would say.
would also give some form of edict protection as well.
Yeah.
Mm. He has hits like Emperor, Felia, Orcish Bowmaster, Badgermole Cub, Dowdy. There are definitely some cards. Where did his library go here? What's currently going on? He has it.
So with 8 cards, no, with 8 life On Sidisi's side, you could even consider to dump some cards into the Psychic Frog next turn, right? To threaten lethal.
He can't.
Because it's shut down, right? With the
Yeah,
flute.
it's named with the flute.
True, true, true. But you still get to draw some cards off of it. And it's still a 3/4. Can't even give it flying. That's definitely good. Yeah. So what are you doing in that situation? You
I guess the DC
probably
is, yeah. The um. If you just place the DC as a blocker here, he's kind of out of it initially, but it does. He can tap down. He can just tap down the Psychic Frog with if the Sidisi is in play. Um,
I think
and
the world map is a good one here, going for the cable covers, I would assume.
yeah, maybe.
What else do you do in this situation? Because then next turn you're still not dead, and that seems to be cable covers, yeah. Um Next turn you have the setup to cast CDC and something else, you know? I don't
Yeah,
know what the deck is planning to do, but
yeah. My maybe comes from that's 4 swamps in play currently, which means that yeah. So there is a Bowmaster. 4 swamps in play currently means that he's only got 7 mana, so the Sidisi can come into play, and if he has nothing else to do, then he can exploit it to itself for 2 mana. After that, if he finds a swamp, then suddenly he has 5 mana, so that he could be in a better position then. I understand the setup of the world map, and definitely the right pick is to go for the Cabal coffers. I'm just not sure he's quite out of it with this search. He still has quite a lot to do to win this game.
yeah, I mean it basically ends up in a sweeper next turn, right? I would assume.
If he has a swamp. If he doesn't have a swamp, then oh no,
There
he
could
has
be Dead
9
of
mana.
Winter. Could be Dead of Winter.
Dead of Winter or Toxic Deluge.
Yeah.
He does play
If you play
uh,
that many fancy
both.
snow-covered swamps, you have to play Dead of Winter. But the swamps are really nice, I have to say.
Yeah, yeah,
I think most of them, I think all of them look really, really good. Just that they're super expensive, and you have to be very dedicated.
yeah. You do have to be very dedicated. If you have one deck that you play that you haven't considered actually swapping to anything else
Yeah,
in a long time, then that's worth it. Like for example, like we don't have any of those decks that we stick to for that long. We usually swap around quite a bit. But if you've been going for years on a deck, then sometimes you can say, okay, well, I'll make this 500 euro commitment to a basic land set, because the chance that maybe you don't need snow covered lands for the next deck or anything like that, suddenly you spend a bunch of money on snow covered lands, which you in some decks you only need one, and you
yeah.
have 33 extra.
But if you look at the snow-covered forest, for example, from that secret layer drop, let's say I want to have 10 for Tifa, one is 26 euros in foil. So I have to
Yeah,
spend 260 euros without paying any shipping and stuff like that, just for having 10 forests, which is
yeah,
quite a lot actually.
yeah.
And by the way, if we're talking about forests or snow-covered forests in particular, I think there is another one that is really, really beautiful. This one here. It's not a full art, but I like it. So over to round two. Starting with a swamp patchland. Rishadan Port, definitely a good one here early on. Okay. Nicholas decides not to go for the surveillant. Despite, okay, is that a? That seems to be a main phase fetch. I mean, I'm not sure if I like that. Usually the
The main phase fetch allows him to deny. It gives him
deny
two
the
mana
Richard
here.
on board. That's true.
Yeah,
That's
it
true.
allows him
Yeah,
to
yeah,
deny the port tap.
yeah. That's a fair consideration. If you want to bring down your 2-drop, then you have to do that. Otherwise, it would be a suboptimal choice. Let's see what comes down. We see a Parallax Wave in hand, a Black Cliff Cleaves, and a Fear of Missing Out. Okay, okay, okay. The good old, not so old, but already old Fear of Missing Out. Okay, so the Parallax Wave is pitched. That also makes sense to me since it seems to be a card that is rather, yeah,
Not
I
great
don't
in
know.
the matchup.
Not, I won't say useless because I think the exploit trigger goes on stack.
Yeah, and you can protect your own creatures from removal with it, but
Right, right, right. But
it's
I think it's
it's a lot of
still a
mana to
bit,
invest
exactly, a
into
bit too
a little
cute.
bit of.
I guess you're winning the game on another level here. So we're having a Jet Medallion coming down, which reduces the mana cost of all black spells that Sidisi is going to cast by 1 generic. Man, I love those turns in Azerorak. When you have these perfect lineups, most of the time Jet Medallion is included. It's a very good card. Is our chat alive, by the way? Or did people fall asleep because how's that called in English when you had like your lunch and all of a sudden you're tired? You know what I'm talking
It,
about?
yeah, I know what you're talking about. Not sure if there's a like quite a name for it.
I thought there was a name for it in English. We will find it out. There is a Dead of Winter dealing with both creatures on board. Having 3 snow-covered swamps is enough to deal with the FOMO. Really good. No power naps. Yeah, I was not searching for the power naps. Let me check. Let me check that real quick.
We might have a worldly tutor here from this pause. I don't quite see it,
Hmm.
but I'm guessing we're going to see Volcanic Island in a Terra.
So you can either call it a food coma or an after meal dip, apparently. I've never heard. We all know
Yeah,
the
food
food
coma I
coma.
get.
Yeah, but after meal dip, well, that it
Oh,
makes sense. It makes sense. But anyways, there is a Terra coming down. Terra reveals a land, another land, Thoughtseize, another land, and the survival of the fittest. That's a very powerful card, and there are very limited ways for MBC to interact with that. There might be, we see a Toxic Deluge, DDC coming down, probably exploiting itself. Yeah. To search for another card.
yeah. So this might be a cable coffers.
Yeah. Could be all kinds of things, actually. I mean,
Which does like segue another another Sidisi cast. It could also be an answer to the survival.
just simply getting an Inquisition, right? Yeah. Which wouldn't
Yep.
be too bad, to be honest.
but he has passed the turn, so it's likely not an answer to the survival. I don't know if he has. I'm looking at his list. Don't know if he has any like proper answers to a survival.
Yeah.
There
How
is.
do what do you I was just trying to answer to the chat. How do you feel about Grist the Hunger Tide these days? Mm, I don't know if you've seen our recent cast um on the session from MTG Prime, where they gathered like some professional players and they were playing against each other on MTGO. And Noah Maubert is currently piloting Grist in this league, and it was an interesting game, I would say. A bit unfortunate on the other side, but from what I saw, the list looks capable of doing things in today's metagame.
Yep, I would say so too. I think there is quite a bit of depth to it because
Yeah,
you do have a pretty good toolbox to have access to with your tutors. Mm, and quite a bit of kind of decisions in what to actually include against a certain metagame. Black and green are two colors that have pretty good answers to certain things happening, the graveyard hate and creature removal and these sorts of things, hand disruption. Um, as we see on the board here, taking it. I'm guessing Winter Moon is the card that Sidisi searched for because that
exactly.
is
Yeah,
a very good card in this current situation. He can just untap his Rishadan Port every turn. All his other lands are basics, so he has full access to all his mana and then can just tap down the Winter Moon. I don't know, like, if this decision took a long time to make, I would think it's not a decision that takes a long time to make. I guess there is the consideration of saying, okay, well, I have 7 power on the board. I can, if I take the Toxic Deluge, then I can prevent 2 creatures being removed. But with the Erebos's insight in hand, or intervention in hand as well, that he can pump quite a bit of mana into and then just gain a bunch of life back. It's not like the clock that he's presenting is that powerful, and being under the Winter Moon leaves you unable to win the game, I would say.
yeah, absolutely. I would agree to that.
So I would, if I was in this position, knowing that survival was revealed at some point, I would be attacking the green mana here
Yeah,
because there is pretty powerful lines with chaining green, chaining the discards with the survival. Um, I mean, you never know, the opponent might not have a creature, but if he does, then yeah, that's pretty good.
yeah, and
Uh,
also, I mean, of course, there could have been a third green mana coming down. Seal of Fire is an interesting inclusion. Seems
yep, that's something you see in a lot of mid-range lists. It
seems a bit
uh,
too cute in my opinion, considering if you think about what the deck is capable of, like the crazy power lines that the deck can bring together. Seal of Fire seems to be a bit, yeah.
yeah,
It's
and
one of those cards that you would think of. Well, sometimes you reveal 5 cards and then you have to choose this instead of not choosing any enchantment. But it's not really something that you're happy with. I
yeah,
would expect.
it's not too often that you actually get a choice on the Terra trigger because you aren't actually playing that many enchantments,
Yeah,
and kind of increasing that frequency um, does make the whole deal a little bit better. But I think, like for example, he is not playing Seam Rip, but he is playing Seal of Fire, um, and he's also playing Swift Reconfiguration and a couple of other interesting enchantments. Um, but yeah, I think Seal of Fire, in my mind, is below the quality of Seam Rip
yeah,
because
I
there
think
is
so
a
too.
bunch
I
of
mean,
graveyard hate.
just to
Uh,
show Seam Rib real quick, it's the enchantment variant of Portable Hole, and I would also prefer that one because it just simply deals with much more. I mean, sure, you can shoot a 2 damage face, and sometimes that might matter, but I would assume it rather does not.
Yeah, there is
Pitching,
the consideration of why not both,
yeah.
but I mean, my list, the one that I'm playing, is very tight. Like, if I think about what cards I could be cutting, I am there. A lot of cards are because you have Birthing Pod and Neoform and Eldritch Evolution. A lot of the creature curve is kind of defined in the way that it is because you need answers to a lot of things exactly at that point in the mana curve. Like I can't cut Chaos Defiler because it's the best thing I can get for 5.
Mm,
And I can't cut like the red Titan I like to keep in the red Overlord because it's a card at 6 that I can get if Metamorphosis Fanatic is too risky. So these kind of lines um and also because having a creature that deals 4 to any target in the board, like a Fury at 6, is also pretty good. So these sorts of considerations, they're in the list, and this list definitely has the same things, except it does not play Birthing Pod, which I'm not a big fan of, but I
interesting.
guess
Maybe the CMC4 creature suit is not good enough.
it does play. It has Deadpool, Grief, Pyrogoyf,
That should be
uh,
enough already, right?
Superior Spider-Man, Yojimbo,
Okay.
Mardu Siegebreaker.
I would say the bottom line for that, for Birthing Pod, in order to qualify, is playing Deadpool and Superior Spider-Man.
Yeah,
And if you played both those cards, then I don't see a point why you would not go for a Birthing Pod.
yeah.
There is a Chaos Defiler, which takes care of the Jet Medallion. Not too crazy, I guess, but why not?
Yeah, and like looking at the hand does not seem too overwhelming on the Sidisi player's side. He can suspend a personal tutor at some
Yeah.
point. Um, but like he's at 12 and the Chaos Defiler does come in for a
Ooh.
relevant clock at some point.
Oh, that's brutal. That is brutal. So we have a Eugen being cast, and apparently Eugen is going to exile the Chaos Defiler. Even if it would not exile it, it's a triggered ability that happens on cast, which means the spell would still be on stack.
Yeah. Also crazy out of the perspective that Chaos Defiler is the card that in the deck that does destroy a Planeswalker slash London permanent unconditionally without doing any damage that you have access to with a survival. So he has to now find something um, other than that to
Yeah,
deal with the 9 loyalty
yeah, that's
um,
very hard to do. I think. I
that
mean,
is on the you can
there is the opportunity to find. There is the Jujimbo is dealing with artifacts and enchantments, right? Yeah,
and tapped creatures, but
and
yeah,
type of creatures. I was thinking about Archon, basically, that would let you sacrifice a Planeswalker.
no Archon in the deck.
There's no Archon in the deck. Oh,
No,
okay. Okay.
the curve tops out at 6. At 7
Interesting.
actually with
Interesting.
with
Interesting.
the Colossal Sky Turtle. Yeah, this deck is not playing the reanimation plan. It's just playing. Yeah, yeah. It's. I mean, it's just playing the mid range plan and the reanimation enchantments in order to have that value off of Terra. So we have. He has the ability. What's he searching for right now?
That's
I guess he hasn't
he's
paid mana for the
n-
survival.
no, no, no. He was sacrificing the verdant catacombs. Search
Oh, okay. I didn't see that.
for
Yeah.
the UC. Yeah. Overlord return to hand is okay. it's honestly not too crazy. I like the combination of ticking up Eugen more and more, drawing cards, and you gain life. You have the War Room on field, which also draws more cards.
Yeah.
And as we can see in the deck list, the deck does play a couple of non-black cards too. So it's not unlikely that you would find another colorless spell to exile more permanents. For example, like now we see the York Will used to cast the Jet Medallion, exiling the Survival. That's a very
Yeah.
powerful lineup already. And then we have the Winter Moon. Oh, Jesus. Well, exiling the Overlord. It doesn't matter if it's a creature or not. Well, that's a pretty big blowout here, I would say.
Yeah, I think that is a point where you can concede.
Yeah, I think so too.
Um,
In the light of
we're at
time, I
we're at
mean,
1-1, right?
yeah,
With
exactly. It
with this match going
it,
to
it would be 1-1, and I
yeah.
don't see a world in which I still
You only
don't
have
think
one
that
mana
this
to
is a
untap
Cling to
with.
Dust, to be honest.
Maybe, yeah, missing. It could be.
It's a Consuming Corruption,
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Yeah,
right?
that's the
Yeah, it's a Consuming
yeah.
Corruption. Also a great addition to the embassy pool.
Yeah, it doesn't do that much early, but but later in the game, it's an incredible way to stabilize against aggro decks.
Sometimes even in the early game, if you shoot a bolt and you gain 3 life for that, it's fine.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
if you have the appropriate mana, of course, but most of the time you have. I don't know if it's by accident, but the fact that the deck plays so many purple artworks is quite cool in combination to the snow-covered lands.
yeah, definitely.
Definitely something that Marcus would enjoy too. Oh, so here we have the Consuming Corruption, which gives him 5 life, right? Yeah, dealing 5 damage, and he would gain 5 life. And I think that's the point, as you said, which you would just consider to go into game 3 in order to stand a chance and
Yeah,
try to
in
win
order
the game,
to
actually.
play for time.
Exactly.
He, I mean, he has. There's, I don't see this. He's untapping. Yeah, he
Because
remembered. Hmm,
Eugen is at
11
11 now.
loyalty.
Okay. So he
He's
correctly
ultimating
Eugen.
it.
Okay, interesting.
He's already got a bunch of the value in play. He can get a Nile Spellbomb, he can get a Ghost Vacuum, he can get an Expedition Map. Expedition
Hans
Map gets
Silex.
Cabal
Oh,
Coffers.
nice.
Khan Silex comes into play tapped, but um, yeah, I think this is
I'm not sure if I would have activated it, to be honest.
yeah,
You can search for Emrakul, right? Isn't it?
colorless non-land cards. Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
he has the
you
Emerald
can
Cooler.
search for
It's
Emrakul.
yeah, it's here. Yeah, okay, never mind. And you cast them, so you get the cast triggers as well.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Yeah, well, then it's quite obvious why you would go for that.
yeah,
So casting it, naming the Seal of Fire by the time the spell resolved. That's a concession. That's a concession.
yeah, and I don't think there's any valid consideration to with 12 minutes on the clock waiting out if the opponent can win the game at this point. I mean,
Yeah.
you have no mana to untap with, and the Emrakul will take control of your turn at least one turn, and then
Yeah, it's basically just wasting time.
yeah. But yeah, that is
But just to show an example, guys.
yeah,
This is a card that you can barely read, and some people might like the design and the font and stuff. I think the artwork is kind of weird. I don't really know what's happening here. Or like things like this is, yeah. I might just not understand it. Uh, I think the Sakura Tribe Elder is cool.
Yeah, I think this card is also pretty cool.
This is cool, but this is the only one. And I like to have alternate fonts because it's, in a way, it's like playing foreign cards to me. And this one, at least you can read, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Tribe Elder is rarely played. We have a Hymn to Turok. Ooh, that's a great start, I would
Yeah, it is a great start, but
imagine.
it could also put the setup for a double striking Spider-Man. Um,
Talking about fancy cards, here is a Hymn to Turok from the Secret Layer. I like that one.
yeah, there we go. Set up for a double striking Spider-Man.
But for the sake of making it easier to read, I will show you a normal variant. Warm coil engine from the Secret Layer. I do not know that one, I guess. Let me check. Oh, is it the one? Oh yeah, you mean this one here? This is
Oh, that
really
was a
cool.
strategic betrayal.
A
So
strategic
strategic betrayal,
betrayal. Yeah.
target player exiles a creature they control and their graveyard. Means that the setup for the Spider-Man is gone. Now we have set up back for a Spider-Man that can only be blocked by 3 creatures. But that's not as good as a double striking Spider-Man, so
So apparently, why has the Renin 6 that you're seeking for in this Secret Layer version? Yeah, I think the coloring on the Renin 6 would look really, really good. Strategic Betrayal is an interesting card. We talked about that in the review back then from Takia. I expected this card to be more or less an auto include for NPC, but it only is. I mean, I think now it's a bit more attractive since Tazigur is unbanned. Back then, it was not really played that often. Here we have a Necromancy targeting the Troll.
I love that Renin 6. Um, I have considered getting it as well, but I haven't had Renin 6 in a deck for quite a while. Um, I think if I was playing it in a list consistently, then I would probably end up getting it as well. The foil version starts at 400 euros, and the non-foil version starts at 130. So
Yeah,
that's a pretty
quite
significant
expensive.
price up from the normal Renin 6, which is like 20 bucks nowadays. But
I'd rather
yeah,
get 10 snow covered forests.
yeah.
uh, that's me playing Tifa all night and day. But we'll see what to play in Prague. Duris finds
And it packed.
Tainted Pact. Yeah, that's a good target, I guess. This member is not too scary. Then again, you can kill Sidisi in response to the exploit trigger.
No, you cannot. Sidisi has 6 toughness.
Oh, you're right.
Sidisi
You're
is
right.
a 4/6.
True.
So is that a necromancy that reanimated the troll? I'm guessing it is, yeah.
Yeah, that's
So the
a
troll will be
necromancy.
attacking for 7 if he gets to attack, which he...
Oh,
There is a March of Wretched Sorrow paying, what's that? 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 mana.
such a cool card. I like it.
I'm a little bit confused. Wait. Oh yeah, because it has 5 toughness, and he's doing it in response
But
to the exalted trigger.
what I like even more is the remaining card in his hand, which is a Wither Boon. One of the 2 black counterspells.
Ah, he is okay.
Ah, yeah, that
I'm
makes sense, I guess.
thinking
Denying the
I
life?
won't find a target for the dismember,
Yeah.
uh, and his life total is he would have gained 5 from that. So yeah, I that makes sense. But with the Spider-Man left in hand, he now has a counter spell for the Spider-Man That's pretty strong. Unless he decides to recast Terra, he also has a counter spell for the Terra, but yeah.
I think I would have tapped down a mana since you have one card left in hand, and
Well, no, he only has. If he wants to cast the Witherboon,
he has to tap one mana.
yeah, but he has a Cabal Coffers that doesn't tap for mana.
Oh, right. I'm
Yeah.
true. True. I'm on the yeah. For some reason, I always, if I see the artwork, I always think of Urborg instead of Cabal Covers.
Ah, okay. But I'm
But yeah,
guessing that this Sidisi is going to get an Urborg
yeah.
because she cost
Yeah,
she
yeah.
cost two to cast now. Next turn she's going to cost 4 to cast. If he gets an Urborg, he will have a Cabal Coffers that suddenly taps for 6, and he will unlock the ability to, yeah,
Cast her
play a
again and
lot of
again, and
spells.
finding the right cards to do your
Yeah,
shenanigans here. Yeah.
he had a Yawgmoth's Will in hand there for a second, and I don't think he's expecting to need to. He's at 17 life. He doesn't really need to answer anything right away. Um, he did whiff on, or maybe he has something here, but I think there's this. Maybe he has a worldly tutor, the Terra player. If he does, that's a pretty strong lineup. If not, I would have thought he would be attacking with the Noble Hierarch.
That's, by the way, one of these original funky magic artworks with a boon,
Absolutely.
with a ring boon, actually. Going for the
Oh,
winter moon instead is also something to do. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, okay. Because, next turn you can still cast CDC and search yourself the Yorborg that you talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense, I would say. Okay. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. Cast CDC, exploited. Next up, we most likely have the Urborg. Let's see. Let's see what he has in mind. Seems to be another card. Passing the turn. So there's no land drop. Okay. It's a Consuming Corruption and a Necrotic Hex. He might have searched for the Hex. Which is discarded. That's a bummer. Would have liked that to be resolved. There is the Urborg from the top. Not bad.
That's very strong.
That's very strong. Yeah. Yeah, I like Necrotic Hex very much. Like suddenly creating 12 power out of nowhere while dealing with the entire board of your opponent. Doesn't sound too bad. Did he cast Sidisi another time? Yeah, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, 6. He
He was tapped out last turn, so
tabs the Cabal Coffers for 6. That makes sense. And the Jet Medallion is reducing it by 1.
depending on how much mana he has floating, he could be getting an Emrakul here. No.
Yeah. Nah, he has only 2 mana. The
Yeah,
Rishadan
the
Port did
Emrakul.
not untap? You mean like for the next turn? Set
Well,
up for
the
next turn.
I was looking. I mean, the Emrakul is reduced by 3 from the cards he has in play, and if he has any mana floating from the coffers.
It's reduced by 2. Jet Medallion only affects black spells.
Oh, so you're true. You're correct. You're correct. Yeah.
So we were at 11. He would make 7 mana from the activation. And then there's at least instant and sorcery in the graveyard, right?
Yeah, instant sorcery. There's an artifact from I think a expedition map that was cast at some
So
point.
we're missing 1 mana. No, you're right. It would work out. Maybe that's the last card he was searching for actually. It would make perfectly sense. Charming wood elves. Let me check. You just mean the wood elves. Yeah, this is absolutely an artwork that I can play to. This one is cool.
But which one are we talking about? Are we talking about these ones, or are we talking about the Rebecca Gay
I think we're talking about
from
the
like old
Rebecca
old
Gay. This
artworks?
one here, yeah. I guess it's about this one. I mean the 7th edition is also really cool.
Yeah,
There are 2 Rebecca Gay
there's
artworks,
two.
right?
There's
Yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah,
the
yeah.
portal and
There's also this one
the
here.
yeah.
Yeah, cool. So the grief comes down and it takes the Emrakul. Oh no. This is so much hand disruption from the Terra player actually.
And he's being very disciplined about it.
Yeah.
He waited to cast that Thoughtseize for quite a bit, for a turn where it was relevant.
So
But yeah, making land drops with the Cabal coffers in play, he just gets to keep looking for more and more stuff to do. He has to tap an additional mana. There's 1 mana left in the hand. But he has so much time against a Wintermoon opponent
absolutely.
that is
I
only
mean,
untapping 1 land a
now
turn.
you just keep on with Eugen, for example, and then you draw cards off of Eugen.
Yeah,
He passes the Eugen, apparently. Maybe he has something better in mind. Maybe
maybe
there
he's looking
is,
for something so specific, but
yeah, maybe there's a spell that would. I don't know of any regrowth effects in mono black, but we will see. You mean the newest one? Yeah, the newest one is cool, but it's one of those cards. I don't know. You can't really read. There's
but
also this one.
but
That's bleh.
Felix, you can't read any of your cards either. That's not
Well,
like
that's
something you
because
can
of the
complain about.
language, not because that's because of the language, because
Yeah.
not because the card was designed to not be read, right? That's a difference, my
Well,
friend. That's a difference.
it is a difference, but it's very minor.
I don't think
Because
so.
I mean, with these cards you can't really read it, but also you can't
For
uh
some reason,
sorry?
I thought that the Yorkville was cast this turn already, but it was last turn,
Yeah, last game it was cast.
last
This
game.
game he
Yep,
gets to
yep.
just yeah, probably cast the Emrakul.
Yeah, I would
The
think so. I mean, you can cast a bunch of spells here, right?
Yeah.
For the Duros will find probably the dance. Yeah,
Oh,
it's exiled.
he's still in this game.
Oh, going for the necrotic hex instead, trying to win the game here. But the tokens are
I don't
1/1.
know if I don't know if he has enough mana for the Emrakul this turn.
Yeah, probably not after casting the Yorkville, but it's the only chance to have access to Emrakul again, right?
I think so, yeah.
I was typing
Um,
Yorkville on Scryfall. That does not work, apparently. Just for anyone who has not seen a Yorkmouse will yet. And it seems they are in extra turn. Yeah. The clock is already stopped. Lots of things happening on the board. Nicholas is definitely playing for a draw here.
yeah, so he can actually that Seal of Fire does reduce the clock by 1 turn.
Yeah.
Um, so he goes to 11, 5, 6, and then 1 if nothing else happens. The Sidisi is, I think this is the 5th Sidisi cast of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. The
Um,
combination of Heartless Summoning, Jet Medallion, and Cabal Coffers really gives you. So basically
ah,
casting the 5th Demonic Tutor in a row.
okay, he has not decreased the clock by 1 because he actually does get to sacrifice a zombie instead of sacrificing a Sidisi.
Yeah, and then you can just follow up by casting. Um, there are spells that deal damage to opponents too,
I
right?
mean, I don't think he needs that. I think he can just uh like
Mm,
it's not that relevant what he does here because he just has the 2-turn clock if they're in turns and his turn was the first extra turn.
oh, he can go
Then
for. He can actually search for Meat Hook Massacre and then roast his entire board after the combat step. You know, if the opponent doesn't do anything next turn, you can attack with the creatures. Then they're down to 3 or something, and then you cast the Meat Hook Massacre, and then your creatures die, and then the additional drain will seal the deal.
true.